I saw that face. The face. It was not what I assumed it to be. The face was red, the blood was dripping from the mouth, and the hands were shaking. I don't know what I saw in that darkness. That vision was haunting. What I saw was indescribable, a girl said in horror, while looking at the window of the room. It was dark outside the window. The girl looked outside the window. She could see a figure outside a window and started trembling. It is outside. It is standing outside the window. It is there. I don't know what it will do to me. The interrogator, standing in front of the girl, looked outside the window. He looked for a few minutes and said, "There is nothing outside the window." The girl started sweating. She looked at the interrogator and tried to say something, but not a single word came out of his mouth. The girl's eyes began to sting. She felt pressure building behind them, as if something wanted to push out. She raised her hands. They were shaking. The interrogator backed away in horror as the girl's own hands slowly turned toward her throat. She kept smiling as she began to choke herself. Before security could reach the room, the girl's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth all burst open at once. What does red color signify? A hue of unrelenting terror, a shade of unending agony. It signifies the crimson tide of blood, the eerie glow of hellfire, and the unholy passion of the damned. Red is the color of the devil's whisper, the scream of the innocent, and the haunting melody of eternal suffering, the color of sacrifice, of madness, of the abyss that swallows all hope. Red is the color of fear itself, a dreadful reminder that darkness lurks, waiting to consume us all. "Grandma, have you heard of a red face?" the girl asked. Grandma smiled. She brought the girl, her granddaughter, close to her. The girl said, "Have you seen it? Tell me about it." Grandma started. "There is a story of an entity which has a red face. The blood drips from its mouth, and its hands shake. People who saw it were not able to describe what they saw, but they all were terrified of what they saw. The mysterious thing is that they all died." The girl thought for a moment and asked, "Do you really think this is real? Isn't it all a myth?" "No, it is not a myth. Don't call it a myth. It will curse you if you call it a myth. Pray before it, bow before it, but don't call it a myth." The girl shivered. "It sounds scary. Should we be scared of it? Everyone should be scared of it. That is why everyone should pray and bow before it. Now that is enough for tonight. You should sleep." The girl's eyes opened at 3:13 a.m. with her blurry vision. She could see something red moving outside the room. She saw her grandma, who was awake. Her hands were folded, and she was praying. The girl felt uneasy. She got out of the bed and moved toward the door. As she got near the door, it appeared in front of it, the red face, blood dripping from the mouth, and hands shaking. The girl was terrified. She didn't know what to do. It was smiling and started walking toward the girl. Suddenly, Grandma started chanting verses. Its attention turned toward Grandma. It started moving toward Grandma, who was continuously chanting the verses. As the girl watched it terror, Grandma grabbed the bell kept on her side. She started ringing the bell and continued chanting the verses. It raised its hand and started screaming. It was screaming the verses, the same as the grandma. As it reached near Grandma, it grabbed her face. As she saw the red face from near, her eyes reddened. She was terrified, but kept chanting the verses. It came closer to her face. Its scream started getting louder. With every loud scream, her eyes, her ears, her nose, her mouth, all started bleeding at once. As the blood was flowing out of her body, her chanting turned into whispering. It looked at her bleeding face and vanished. The girl was in shock as her grandma was lying dead in front of her in the pool of blood. What is a myth? A whispered tale of ancient terrors. A shadowy narrative that crawls beneath the skin of reality. It is a dark reflection of humanity's deepest fears, a twisted echo of forgotten truths. They are the unspoken stories of what lurks beyond the edge of sanity, the forbidden knowledge that drives mortals to madness. They are the monsters under the bed, the demons in the dark, and the nameless horrors that haunt our dreams. The girl was in shock. She could not process what she just saw. She stood silent on the very spot for the next hour. Someone knocked on the door. The girl stood there only. The knocking continued for a few more minutes. And then there was a sound of a bang. A policeman came and saw the girl standing still, watching the blood-stained dead body of her grandma. The policeman grabbed the girl and asked, "What happened? Why aren't you responding?" The girl stood still. The maid came and asked in a terrified voice, "What happened?" "I was knocking on the door, but no one responded. I tried calling, but no one picked up the call. I called the local police. When all means of communication failed, the police took the girl to the police station. At the police station, the girl sat on the chair and didn't say anything. A policeman came inside a room and sat in front of the girl. The girl looked at the policeman. The policeman leaned forward, his face half shadowed by the flickering light above. "I need you to talk. Your grandmother is dead, and there was blood everywhere. The doctor says it looks like internal rupture." The girl's lips trembled, but no sound came. In her mind, she could see the red face smiling. She could feel it behind the policeman's chair, just out of sight, waiting. Her hands clenched the edge of the metal table. "I saw it," she finally whispered. "Red face. It took her life." The policeman sighed. Red face. There was no evidence of anyone else in the house. No footprints. No forced entry. The door was locked from inside. You were the only one there. The girl's eyes darted to the corner of the interrogation room. For a split second, she saw it again, not fully formed, just the dripping grin, floating in the shadows, where the light didn't reach. It whispered something in a language that made her stomach twist. She screamed, and there was blackness in front of her eyes. 2 days later, the girl sat in a small chapel attached to the local church. The priest, an old man with kind but tired eyes, had insisted on speaking with her privately. Candles flickered on the altar. "God is with you, child," the priest said softly. "Whatever you saw, the Lord can protect you. Tell me everything." The girl's voice cracked as she spoke. She told the priest about the red face, the blood, the way it screamed verses in the same rhythm as her grandma's prayers, how it drank her life. The priest listened without interrupting. When the girl finished, the priest's face had gone pale. "I have heard this before, but in confessions, in old villages far from here. Some say it is a demon that feeds on faith itself. Others believe it is something older, an angel that fell so far it burned red with its own hatred of heaven." The girl looked up sharply. "Angel?" Father nodded slowly. "The devil was once the most beautiful angel. What if some angels did not fall with Lucifer, but were changed, twisted by watching humanity worship false gods, or by God's own silence when we suffer? What if this is God's forgotten wrath, made flesh, a being sent not to tempt, but to punish those who pray to the wrong thing, or who stop praying altogether?" He leaned closer, voice dropping to a near whisper. "Your grandma was praying when it came. She rang the bell, chanted the verses. She fought it with God's name, yet it still took her. That means her faith was not enough, or perhaps the thing she prayed to was never God at all. That night, as the girl's eyes closed, she saw two thrones. On one throne sat a figure of pure light, so bright it burned to look at, God, or what she imagined God to be. On the other throne sat a being wrapped in shadows, horns curling like smoke, smiling with too many teeth, the devil. Between them stood the red face. It raised its bloody hands and spoke, I am the mirror. I show you what you truly worship. The girl woke up screaming again, but this time she wasn't alone in the room. The red-faced entity stood at the foot of her bed. It didn't move. It simply watched her with eyes that were black holes, dripping crimson. Its mouth opened, and instead of screams, it spoke in her grandma's voice. Pray, bow. The girl clutched the small silver cross the priest had given her. She started reciting the prayer, voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. The red face tilted its head. Its smile widened until the corners of its mouth tore. As the girl reached the end of the prayer, the entity raised one shaking, blood-slick hand and pointed directly at the cross. The silver began to melt in her palm, burning her skin. The girl dropped it with a cry. The entity stepped closer. It said in a voice like something ancient, God and the devil are the same coin. One side promises salvation, the other promises freedom. Both demand worship, both devour the faithful. I am the edge of that coin, the part that cuts when you flip it. It leaned down until its dripping face was inches from the girl's. You saw me because you doubted. Your grandma died because she believed too hard in the wrong direction. Faith is a doorway. Doubt is the key. I walk through both. The girl's eyes began to sting. She felt pressure building behind them, as if something wanted to push out. She remembered the policeman's words. No evidence. No one else in the house. What if the red face was not outside? What if it had always been inside? The next morning, the interrogator found the girl sitting calmly on her bed, eyes closed, hands folded exactly like her grandma had been. She was chanting softly. When the interrogator tried to check on her, she opened her eyes. They were completely red. No white, no pupil, just deep, wet crimson. She smiled, with blood already trickling from the corners of his mouth. It is not a demon, she said, in a voice that was not entirely her own. It is not an angel either. It is what remains when God and the devil shake hands. It is the truth they both hide from us, that every prayer feeds something, every doubt starves it, until it gets hungry enough to come collect. She raised her hands. They were shaking. The interrogator backed away in horror, as the girl's own hands slowly turned toward her throat. She kept smiling as she began to choke herself, whispering the same verses her grandma had chanted, but now they sounded like laughter. Before security could reach the room, the girl's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth all burst open at once. In perfect synchronization, blood painted the white sheets. The red face was never seen again in that town. But sometimes, late at night, when someone prays a little too desperately or doubts a little too loudly, they feel something red watching from just behind their eyelids, and they wonder, is it God testing their faith? Is it the devil punishing their sin? Or is it something far worse? The thing that laughs when both sides claim victory, because in the end, red is the only color that remains when light and darkness bleed together, and it is always, always smiling.